in the camera. Let me move it up a little bit. See if that's better. Hold on one second while I do this. Okay, I think that's gonna get it right there. Make sure everything's in here. I think that's good. Okay, so we have our 9x12 canvas, and this canvas is a gallery wrap canvas, so it's 1.5 inches thick. So that's the kind of canvas that I use on all my resin. They're stronger. And then I have already taped the back of my canvas, and I put a sawtooth hanger on it for hanging this piece. So I taped the back of it so that I don't get resin all over everything. And I'm going to paint the canvas white. I just use Aleene's craft paint. This is just any craft paint will work. This is just the one that I have. Anita's, not Aleene's, Anita's. Sorry about that, I use Aleene's glue. But this is Anita's. So get me some paint on my plate. And I have my water, I have a damp brush, and I'm just going to start by painting the sides. I also have these little cups down here, and those are going to be my riser cups. When you are pouring resin, you don't want the resin, I try to do it so that the resin does not run off the sides of my canvas, but if it does, you don't want any drips, or you don't want it to stick to your table. So I have some plastic down that will catch the resin, and also the cups rise it up to help with any drips. So if I have any drips, then I can take the tape and pull those drips off with the tape. So I'm just going to get a coat of paint on here real quick. Paint my sides and the top. There we go. Get that done. Keep going. I always get paint all over myself when I'm painting. And I know this is probably boring to watch me paint a white canvas, but it needs to be painted. A lot of people will ask, why do you paint the canvas? It's white canvas and you're going to pour resin over it. You don't really need to paint it. And I paint it because sometimes the edges will look dingy. These edges that I'm painting now will look dingy. So I always paint them. It also helps make it where it's easier to wipe off and clean if you need to. And you can paint your edges at the beginning or the end, it doesn't really matter. And make sure I got my hook at the top, which I do. Put this on here with my riser cups. All right, so now I'm going to paint the top. So if anybody has any questions, I need to tell you a little bit about Idle Hour. We opened here in October. I was in the basement of my home doing stained glass and glass art. I always wanted to teach what I do, share, pay it forward, share what I teach, what I do with others. And so I wanted a larger space. Then we sold our home, and when we sold our home, that was my opportunity to get a larger studio space, because in the basement I could probably have like one student, and that was about it. There was not very much room. So now I have a larger studio space and can teach. So we teach stained glass classes, we teach resin art classes, we have open studio time, all kinds of things. Let me see if anybody has any questions so far. Thanks, Elaine. This is a fun project. This is something my sister said, well, Sheila, you have to put glass on this because we're glass artists. That's our whole focus, is making sure everything has glass on it. So that's where the sun catcher idea came from. But you can do mixed media and put just about anything you want on a canvas and resin it, almost anything. All right, so now my canvas is painted. Got a little spot right here that doesn't have much paint on it. go. I think that's it. Got it all painted. I'm gonna get this out of the way so I don't get paint on myself any more than I already have. And if you'll excuse me for just a minute, I'm going to hit this with the blow dryer for like 10 seconds. So it's going to be loud. I apologize. So just close your ears for a second while I dry this. Doesn't take long, but it's a necessary evil sometimes. Almost there. There we go. Sorry about all that noise. And I am going to begin laying out my pieces here on my canvas. So like I said before, this is a back to school project. So we're going to start with our apple. So I have my apple, and I'm going to place my apple here. And then I have my letters, my back to school letters. And I learned today that the O has a top and a bottom. I thought, well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. And I'll show you why. These are Scrabble letters, Scrabble game letters. So we're going to have back to school. So I'm going to put this right here. Where's my K? I'm going to get it up a little bit on here. Now, sometimes when you're doing things like this, you may want to glue it down. And I don't think any of this is going to move around, so I'm not going to glue it down. But if you were going to glue something down, I use Aleene's Clear Tacky Glue. It dries clear and it dries quick, so that's what I use. And I don't want these necessarily like in a straight row like that, but I want them to kind of be together, but maybe a little off, not necessarily straight. And I think that will work right there. Maybe, we'll see. We'll see how we like that in just a minute. Get that over a little bit. All right, then I'm going to put my ruler on here and my scissors. And I want to put my scissors so that they lay down on the canvas, but they're not like hanging off the edge of the canvas, because if somebody wanted to put this on an easel, you want to make sure that it will fit on the easel. So I'm going to take my scissors and move them up a little bit and put the blade, rest it on my ruler so that it's not wobbly. And then I have my eraser, and I have my pencil. Oops, here's a piece of trash on my canvas already. So I'm going to put my pencil. I want my words to be up so I can read the words on my pencil. And now I am going to, let's see, I'm going to take this and rest it here, and then these color pencils, put them here like so. And then I'm just going to sprinkle in some paper clips as filler on here. This is a fun little project. Great little gift for a teacher or a first-year teacher who is looking for some things to decorate their classroom. So this is a quick and easy and fun little project that you could do and gift to a teacher. You could put something else on it. You could put their name on it. Instead of back to school, you could put their name or kindergarten or whatever you wanted to put. So this is my collage piece that I'm thinking. I think I like this. Maybe I'm going to do my school a little bit different. Let's see. Maybe not so squinched up. There we go. So I'm thinking I like my little composition here. Move this over a little bit. Move this a little bit. And kind of have these down. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now what we're going to do, one of the things you want to do is make sure that your canvas is level. If it's not level, then your resin will run off one side or the other. So I've just checked the level, and I'm going to be using art resin. Art resin was created for artists, by artists. It has low odor and it does not turn yellow as quickly as some other resins. So it's made specifically to go over artwork. So I'm going to be using this tonight. And this is a packet that has 2 ounces, has 2 ounces of resin. Art resin is a 50-50, 1-to-1 mix. 1 part resin, 1 part hardener. And so the way this packet works is it has 1 ounce of resin on one side and 1 ounce of hardener on the other side. If you were doing this in a cup, then you would pour equal parts, 1 ounce of resin and 1 ounce of hardener in your cup, and then stir. When you are stirring it in a cup, you want to stir slow, but you don't want to stir too slow. You want to stir fast enough to mix it, but you also don't want to beat eggs. If you're doing beaten eggs, you're going to whip or incorporate a lot of air into your resin, and then that will transfer onto your canvas, and you don't want that to happen. So if you're doing it in a cup, that's how you would do that. So I am going to use this packet right here, and I need to mix this for 3 minutes. So I am going to begin by taking this and kneading it. And I have a clock here so I can tell when I have done three minutes of mixing with my resin. So while I am doing this, let me talk to you a little bit about what's coming up. In August, next week, we're going to do a dragonfly. And I will show you how to do a dragonfly. There's more than one type of dragonfly. You can take the same pattern and do it different ways. So we're going to do a dragonfly. And then after that, last week, I always think of August as a transition month. That's the month that summer ends and fall begins. We're ending summer. And in Georgia, it is hot, hot, hot. And we're looking forward to fall. But we're also, you know, that anticipation of cooler weather and that kind of thing. It's also the time of year transition where kids go back to school, summer's over and they go back to school, teachers go back to work, they've been off all summer, some of them have been working all summer. And students go back to college, a lot of people begin their new jobs. So always think of August as a transition month. So I asked last week on the live, what flower did people think represented that transition from summer to fall? And the replies were a pansy, a mum, or a sunflower. So also in August, we're going to do sunflowers. We're going to do a stained glass sunflower sun catcher, and we're going to take the exact same pattern and we're going to do it in crushed glass resin piece. So we will be doing a sunflower, and then we may do a pansy following that. So that's what we're going to be doing on our lives in the month of August. So I've been doing this now for almost 2 minutes, and you can see it's got some bubbles in it, and those bubbles could incorporate onto my piece, and so we will torch it to get the bubbles out. I'll show you how to do that. But you see this big bubble, that's just air in here. If you didn't have air in here, it would not mix. So you have to have a little bit of air in your packet to make it mix together. And I'm just taking this and kneading it back and forth, which is the same as stirring it with a popsicle stick or a silicone stick or whatever you have that you want to stir it with. Some people use like a plastic spoon. I typically use a tongue depressor sized popsicle stick. You can use a thin popsicle stick, whatever you want to use. So I'm going to do this, continue with this. So I think my 3 minutes is up. So now what I'm going to do is, when you're working with resin, you always want to wear gloves. So I'm going to put on my gloves so that I don't get resin all over my hands. That'll be a sticky mess if I did that. So I'm going to get my gloves on, and then I am going to drizzle this on my piece of artwork. And in order to drizzle it, for me it's hard. You could drizzle it out of this packet by just cutting the corner off, and to me that's hard to do. I don't feel like I have control. So I'm going to snip the corner and put this resin out of this packet and into my cup. So I don't know if you can see me doing this, but it's maybe off camera a little bit. But basically I'm just squeezing it out of here and into my cup so that I can drizzle it onto my artwork. Now some of our artwork is three-dimensional, very three-dimensional, like the scissors. So we're going to have to do a little work to make sure that we get them covered, but that we don't have so much that it runs all over the place and makes a big mess either. So it's kind of going to be a guessing game. I have mixed 2 ounces of resin. I don't have a whole lot of like glass on here. I do have some three-dimensional pieces, but I don't have like a big pile of glass that I'm trying to cover and get resin down into the grooves and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping this 2 ounces is going to be just the perfect amount. All right, so now I have my resin in my cup. It's 2 ounces, as you can see. I'm going to stir it, just to give it a quick stir. Make sure it's clear. When you're mixing resin, it's going to kind of turn cloudy, and then it will go from cloudy to clear, and when it is clear, it is ready to use. Okay, so where do we want to start? Let's start down here with our apple. So I'm going to take my apple off, and I'm going to put a little resin up underneath here, and then I'll set my apple back on top of my canvas. So I want to make sure that my apple is secured to my canvas. So I am going to make sure that I have a nice layer of resin under my apple. There we go. I think that'll be just fine right there. Maybe a little bit more right here. And now I'm going to set my apple on here where I want it, just like that. And that will secure it down and hold it into place. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to put a little bit of resin over the top to make sure that it is adhered to my canvas, but not so much that I have a whole lot of excess resin up on my apple, big old pool of resin. I don't want that. So I want to kind of keep it at a minimum, enough to hold it, but not so much that it looks like a big puddle. So get this all on here, spread it around. I'm going to use my fingers to spread it on my apple like so. Okay, I think that's good. It's all covered. All right, now I'm going to do my back to school. Let me see if there's any comments on here. Thank you all for watching. I sure do appreciate it. All right, so we're going to cover up our letters up here, and I'm just going to drizzle this resin on the letters. I told you that it looked like I didn't realize the O's had a bottom and a top. Scrabble letters have numbers, and I was doing this and laying it out, and I was like, this looks funny. That's because that number was at the top and it should have been at the bottom. So that's when I realized they have a top and a bottom, which was kind of cool. When you're doing something like this, I'm not playing Scrabble. I'm using them to spell out a letter. So if you're doing something with Scrabble letters to spell something out, make sure that you have them right side up. which with the H, I guess, would look funny too, the other way. But the O was the one that I had messed up. All right, so I'm just going to drizzle this on here, get these letters covered, and then I will move over to my other pieces over here on the side. I'll probably start with my ruler and my scissors because they're the biggest pieces to be resined. The rest of it will be pretty straightforward and simple to do. So this is what we do all day. We have fun and play with resin and different things. I'm going to put a little drizzle under here to hold down my ruler right there, just enough to hold it down into place, and make sure my numbers are the right way. They're right side up. There we go. All right, now my scissors, I want to make sure that I have resin underneath here to hold them down and to hold them in place. And remember, they're going over the top of my ruler, so I'm going to make sure that I have resin over the top of my ruler that will help to secure my scissors in place. Get this out from under here. So I'm going to cover this with resin as well. You have 45 minutes of working time with art resin. If you wanted to do something with art resin, you have 45 minutes of working time. Okay, so now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to put some resin up underneath here. Cover this. Let me see. Do it this way. Get this covered really well right here so that I can put my scissors down and hold them into place. This is truly a mixed media project. It has paint, it has collage materials, it has glass. It's definitely a little different, but fun. Really, really fun. All right, so now I'm going to set my scissors here, just like so. Let's turn them over so we have the words facing up on our scissors. And now I'm going to sprinkle them, spread a little resin over the top of them, and let it run down, and that will adhere it to the canvas. So now it will be secure. All right, I'm going to put some over the top of my paper clips and my eraser, and just keep going. Put some under my eraser too. Let's see. Put some under here to hold this down. I've had a few people ask me about doing online classes, and so I have kind of made a decision to move forward with that. And so hopefully in October I will be doing online classes, and in that class, in that group, it would be one resin project and one stained glass project every month. Let me do my pencil while I'm over here. So every month there would be 2 projects, and then also there would be tips and tricks on like how to cut glass, how to store glass, how to grind glass, how to cut a vase. And a lot of the things are going to transfer from both types of glass art, stained glass as well as crushed glass. So some things will be the same, some things will be a little different. So if you are interested in that, if you would send me an email, that would be awesome, or send me a message and let me know that that's something you would be interested in, and I will let you know more about it as we move forward through August and September. Let me see if I got any comments up here. Ooh, I got a lot of people watching. Y'all appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. All right, so now I'm going to cover my pencils, my colored pencils, and my paper clips that are up here, and finish my canvas. I'm just drizzling it over these pencils to hold them in place, and the paper clips to get them, everything will be secured to the canvas. Remember, you have 45 minutes of working time, so you have plenty of time when you're working on something like this to play with it and kind of get it like you want it. Get everything covered and kind of spread my resin around a little bit and put a little bit up here, and I'm going to start spreading it around. Pretty much have everything covered, I think. Oops, some of these don't have any. And let's make sure my scissors are covered well. There we go. I think that's got them. Cover this part. Get a little bit of resin down in here. Make sure I have it in all my little creases and crannies, and so the whole canvas is completely covered. All right, now we're going to put some up here and start spreading it around. And I think I'm just going to use my finger to spread it. I think I'll be better off spreading because there's a lot on here, a lot going on. And a lot of times I will use a silicone spreader like this. It's really a makeup applicator to spread my resin, but there's so much going on with this canvas. It's going to be hard to get in there in between everything with this silicone spreader, so I am going to use my fingers and try to get everything covered. I try to do this so that it doesn't drip off the edge and that I don't have any pools of resin around things. You don't want it to pool, but you also don't want it to run off the sides. So sometimes it's a guessing game as to how much resin you might need. You don't want it too thin, but you don't want it so thick that it runs off. So I'm going to keep going and spreading it around up here, around my letters. Got that. So all this corner down here is done. I think that looks good. Got a little spot right there. Around my pencil looks good. Get around my eraser. My scissors are looking good. This corner. And my ruler is covered. Now let's get down in here and get this covered right here. Might need a little more right there. Let's see how we do. Yep. Put a little more resin right here, so I have enough to spread around and cover my corner. Get my pencils covered really good, which I think they are. All right, so I'm just going to keep going. I sure do appreciate everything y'all do. If y'all would help me spread the word about Idle Hour. Know that we teach classes here in our studio, so if you're local and you want to take a class, just let me know what you'd like to do, what you would like to make, and we can set up a date and a time for you to come in and make anything you want to make. Anything from an ocean wave to a dragonfly, a butterfly. We can do stained glass, we can do crushed glass, anything that you would like to make, I'm sure we can do. Okay, I think it's covered. See if there's any places that look kind of thin. See a couple places that might need a little extra. When you're using your silicone spreader, You want to clean it with either a Lysol wipe or an alcohol wipe. So I have a Lysol wipe. I'm wiping my glove hands off with that Lysol wipe. And I'm going to put a little bit more right here. It looks a little pitty, like it's thin. So I'm going to put a little bit more right in here. Make sure everything is covered well. And my scissors, keeps running off my scissors. So I need to cover them again. Make sure they're all good. It looks a little thin right here along this edge. So I'm going to add a little bit right there. So I think this 2-ounce packet was perfect. The perfect amount of resin for this. Okay, so now what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a creme brulee torch. Oops, let me fix this. I want my words to show on my pencil. So let me turn this. There we go. That's better. And the same thing with this one. Just turn it so that the words show on my pencil. There we go. I'm going to use a creme brulee torch to pop the bubbles on my canvas. And when you're using a torch, you want to pop the bubbles, and you need to understand that the heat pops the bubbles, not the flame. So you do not want the flame to touch your canvas, because it will burn the resin. So here we go. I'm going to just take my torch and go back and forth. You don't want to stay in one spot very long, because if you stay in one spot for a really long time, it will burn your resin, burn your canvas. You don't want that to happen. So I'm going to keep going, make sure I've got my bubbles popped. Doesn't take very long, doesn't take very much. You just want to make sure you get everything done. I see a dry spot on my canvas right here that I need to put a drop of resin right there. It's not covered. There we go. I think I have it covered. Okay, so there we go. Our back to school project is done. So we used Scrabble letters, we used a apple sun catcher, pencils, color pencils, some paper clips, a pair of scissors, and an eraser to make our piece. I don't have any drips around my edges, so that's all good. So I am going to